How WW2 could have gone, according to Hoi4 players. So we have Germany invading the Soviet Union in 1941 with all of their Axis help. Now, Hoi4 players clearly know everything there is to know about WW2, and they know how easy Hitler could have won. It's pretty simple. They're just going to take the Soviet Union, and that's about it, right? They get Crimea, and boom. Literally that simple. Like, why didn't the no-no Germans think of that? Just defeat the Soviet Union. That's all you gotta do. The 1908 St. Petersburg catastrophe, or basically if the Tunguska asteroid hit hours later. This was a 12 megaton explosion that happened somewhere in the middle of Siberia, luckily, and it absolutely obliterated just about everything in its path. Look at these trees all just falling over. This is how big it was compared to other notable craters. So we're really lucky in our timeline this landed in the middle of nowhere, but this is when the unthinkable has happened. Destroyed buildings close to the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. Basically got there a little late, so the Earth was able to spin a bit more before it landed. Total destruction of the city. It caused the oofing of Nikolai II, Tsar of Russia at that time, and was the beginning of the Russian Civil War. Mass exodus of survivors into surrounding Russian cities. Estimated tens of thousands of casualties, 80% of the city destroyed. That's a very interesting alt history if the asteroid itself was the thing that caused the Russian Civil War like 10 years earlier, not World War I. I would assume the Central Powers, and Germany specifically, would have a lot easier of a time destroying their eastern neighbors if they were in a long internal battle for the last decade. Then again, does WW1 even break out in this world? Probably. Actually, yeah, still, it probably does. November 9th, 1989, a completely unremarkable day. So clearly we have a different map than what I would expect at this time period, but let me see if I can figure it out. First of all, something really horrible happened to Turkey, I think. Very difficult to tell because this newsman is kind of blocking the rest of it, but did they finally partition this country? At the end of World War I, when the Ottomans had crumbled, this is kind of what they were hoping for in 1920, with the British zone, the French zone, the Italian zone, the Greek zone, the Armenian zone, and then there's going to be like an international zone of straits right here. So maybe that's kind of what we're looking at. Yugoslavia is still going strong, but it's 1989, so they're supposed to be. Hungary got this chunk out of Romania. There still seems to be a really big Russia behind this dude. No free Ukraine. Poland exists, but the real different borders come from Germany. So there's a Western Germany and an Eastern Germany, but Eastern Germany has those old WW1 borders as well. For reference, this is the old history, and this is the real life image used. So obviously there are some significant differences. Oh, in real life, this was the day East Germany opened the border and pretty much collapsed, I guess. Apparently from the creator, this is a world with very strong Dutch and British colonies in North America. A movie poster for the upcoming film Death of Trotsky? Wait a second, that's not right. Oh my goodness, please tell me it's Steve Buscemi playing Trotsky. Either him or Colonel Sanders. Clearly they're both made for this role. Oh, Steve Buscemi was in The Death of Stalin. So this is clearly a world where instead of Stalin taking power in the Soviet Union, it was actually Trotsky who Lenin wanted in the first place. I kind of want to see this movie now, even though it might be somewhat similar. The Black Bay Republic, or what if the Antarctica Peninsula had native people living on it? I've done several scenarios in different games where I have people living in Antarctica, and this is always the first place they go. I mean, this seems like the most habitable spot. You know, then again, this whole thing is like a giant death continent. I mean, just judging by the surface elevation, as well as, I guess, climate as a whole during the winter and summer, it does look like the best spot. Like when you get to this teeny little spot all the way at the edge, it only is 0 degrees during this season. 0 degrees Celsius. Not bad. You definitely don't want to be right dead in the center though, because you'll be dead. So this is some sort of colony with 42,000 people living on it. Those are insanely high numbers, I would assume, even 42,000. The capital city of Notia, is pretty close to that edge. I would assume it would be pretty close to that edge. And they speak English, Paizmaken, is this the native language? Russian and Yiddish. Is this some sort of Russian-British colony, or did someone have it first and then it got taken by another? If anyone in the world's gonna live in Antarctica, it would definitely be the Russians. They're used to that cold. They have a parliamentary republic, and they're Christian, Paizmeka, faith, and Judaism. United Nations mandate. So are they not allowed to settle any further in there or what? So there are different zones in here. There are the native people in the orange, and then the blue are the regions, or probably like the colony settlers stuff. It's some good stuff. I like this one. Canadians, would you accept this treaty? In the heartland, we have New Canada, a puppet government with the Ottawa Partition, and the US is going to take little bites in the southern part here. We've got a new country formed called Cascadia, as well as Alaska taking over Yukon and New Rupert's Land. And if you're not willing to accept this, then why why should the Ukrainians accept theirs? A world where new Ukraine is a puppet government, probably to Russia, while Russia gets everything east of this little river that goes through. They for sure get Crimea now, and then there's this place that I've never heard of before. Does Belarus get anything out of this? I would assume they probably helped out a little bit. They should get something. Oh, Polish Ruthenia and Transcarpathia. I just love that they used Canada for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, I guess they're comparing US to Russia if we were to invade our syrup neighbors. But this just makes it so much funnier. I like the way this guy thinks. So here's a map of Africa if the Berlin Conference never happened and the following decades of what it would look like. So in our timeline, the Berlin Conference regulated European colonization and trade in Africa during the new imperialism period. So at the start here, things shouldn't look too different. We still have the Ottoman Empire, Egypt, French Algeria, and the Kingdom of Morocco. And of course, there's the British South African colony down here. This is already so beautiful. Then 20 years later, the British get all of Egypt. The French are getting a lot of coastal territory, especially the Ivory Coast. Germany's getting some things, but not a whole lot. It's now 1910, right before WW1, and already you can see some pretty big changes. The British are actually in the Central Powers, and of course their little buddy Portugal always joins the British. The Ottomans are actually on the Allies side. That also means North America is going to have a little bit of fighting going on. I'm just going to go ahead and assume Germany's going to win this. Wait, I'm not sure because it's 1920 and things are still happening. Austria-Hungary has pretty much been dissolved, but now Italy joins the Central Powers as well as Sweden and the Dutch. The Dutch actually, wait, when did they get all this? Did the British give them that? I don't even know. Portuguese are slowly losing what they used to have. This French Congo looking huge. Also, the British no longer have Egypt. The Ottomans got that. Yeah, France is really taking over this continent. It's now 1950, and the world has been completely flipped upside down. In blue, we still have NATO, and then the Third International and allies. Are these communist countries? Clearly, Germany did win this world's WW1 because, of course, the British changed sides 30 years later, though. Oh, look at the US. They took over all of Canada. The Congo had been released in 1950, but the Italians are going after that Roman Empire again. They took a bunch away from the French, I think, or even in the Arabian Peninsula. The Ottomans have collapsed. There's still a British Syria, though. Finally, it's 2022, and there seems to be still kind of a Cold War going on. Now, most of the Europeans have left this continent finally. I'm sure they've left a pretty big impact, though. The former Dutch colony became South Africa, and this is the Cape Republic. I don't know, formerly British. Got a big old Congo going on right here. And then there's an Arab Union as well. Wait, are you guys a part of the Arab Union? Iran looks pretty big. There's a lack of Israel, I see. I think this world's still at each other's throats. Now Africa, though, is involved. A lot of neutral nations, though. This was really awesome to see so many different maps. Oh, I see. Some of those countries were puppet states as well in the very beginning. I think they all got their independence at the end, though. An extremely subtle map of an alt history where the Soviet Union has clearly survived until 1997. It's one of those images that would probably go over a lot of people's heads. And they look like they're still going strong, even though they collapsed in our timeline like 6 years beforehand. Maybe even Lenin is still alive. I don't think so, but I'm just saying. This would be on the 80th anniversary of the October Revolution. The European Union in 2072. Now, I've seen a lot of these like thick EUs before. They're pretty boring, but this one actually gives data behind it. So the population would be pretty mixed. Also, I see the UK never left or they came back. Germany is number 1, but Turkey is very close behind. Then it's France and the British. What's going on with the British? Have they gone like fascist or something? Spain, Italy, Poland, Ukraine. Of course, these smaller states still working on getting to 1 million. Here's a timeline of the map as people began to join in so we can figure out exactly who joined what in what years. So this should all be familiar to us, the collapse of the Soviet Union. Okay, so the UK did leave in 2020. So apparently they're going to come back. Ireland has been united. All of the Balkans have joined except for Albania. Albania now joined. Boom, UK joined in 2048. The Nordics all joined in 50s. So this was like the big time period. 2035, Greenland joins. That's a thick new member. Norway finally joins with the Swiss. Oh, that's the most unrealistic right there. All this stuff, reasonable. Belarus even. But the Swiss finally joining? How did they pull that off? Now, technically, when you compare other countries' populations, they're still third, the EU is. India, of course, is number 1 at this point, just barely passing up China. Nigeria is 4, and the US drops all the way down to 5th. Oh, what is this Eurasian League going on? I wish we knew more about that. Is that like Central Asia? I don't know. And this might be something what the European Parliament would look like. Very chaotic. A lot of craziness. There's a lot of European left and socialist Democrats in the Green Party. And on the other side, we have the European Free Alliance. I don't know what that is. Conservative and the European People's Party. It's only a matter of time before I think even the Russians join the EU, I think, in this universe. What's the point in building an empty empire now? This is an alternative universe where Margaret Thatcher is attempting to keep the colonies, but this is clearly a poster that doesn't agree with that. Despite UN ongoing demands for British withdrawal from Nigeria, she has refused. 10% of GDP goes to the British Army, even though workers are being asked to accept austerity. So this is 1983, and there's going to be a vote to decolonize. So as you can see, they're still holding on to quite a bit. They kind of have their own little eastern Alaska. I don't know why I said it like that, but they still have a lot of the Caribbean islands. There's also been a lot of riots where they've had to put down people. They've kept a lot of Africa, not a majority of what they had before, but they're still trying to hold on to stuff. They really don't want to let Nigeria go, though. Of course, they got to keep their islands, unsurprisingly. There was an Anglo-Egyptian border conflict that happened. Also did something to Iran, not even sure why that is, but they're just trying to keep that empire together. They still have Sri Lanka and a couple of port cities. Hong Kong, too. Gotta love the alt history propaganda posters. The Balkan Federation, or what if the Bleed Agreement, succeeded in 1947? Or, I should say, what if a nation lasted only 13 seconds long? So this agreement in our timeline was signed by the Bulgarian leader, Tito of Yugoslavia, and it paved the way for unification between the states in this region. The policies were reversed after the Tito-Stalin split in 48. So this is a world where they got all this right here. I can already feel the explosion ready to happen at any moment. But maybe it wouldn't have, and maybe like 50 years under like Soviet control, they could have learned to live together. I mean, that didn't necessarily work out for Yugoslavia, but maybe if there was no split but with Stalin, I don't really know. I'm trying to make something up. I can't think of any way this is gonna work out. Curious if Turkey, Greece, and Romania decided to join too. And big thanks to this month's supporters:
LuxembourgLover,
Alfonso M6,
AryanAfterHours,
Drew's Argentinian Grandpa,
Barnsky W,
bringbackpolandball,
McBlorf,
istoledrewspetdog,
iLoveMarx,
Majestic Unicorn,
Max Cooper,
RyeThePie,
Why am I doing this?
Drew's Arab Sugar Daddy,
Krombopulos
Mimoshiki,
Michael,
Louise,
Canadian
Adam
Union,
Stillerman,
Alex Whitley is Mega Chad,
aPhatNarwhal,
Corey,
Philipp RF,
Robert E,
ortin 5610,
and Sussy Muliati.